So this week I continued reading in Conway. I continue to encounter the same issues that I have mentioned before. So yeah, I did not plan to be in a decoding kind of gig with this book, but I am, and that's fine. As I mentioned last time, I'm going to go right through it instead of going around it. I'm slowly going to buy a few more topology books. I already ordered 2 more from Dover, so they're cheap, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, so I will have to have a small batch of topology books in order to be able to fully understand what Conway is laying out. Now, he's proving a lot of things that I need to learn, and so it's an important book for me. I do continue to see it's almost like the longer the proof is, and I'll go back to my famous one where I got really wrapped around the axle, as some would say. I think it was in section 1.4, yeah, theorem 1.4.5. The longer it goes, and maybe he did it on purpose to get people like to do more problems, to interact more with the text. That may be part of the design, but it seems like the longer the proof, if you have like 5 sentences, there's like 1 full sentence that puts it all together that is missing. And so the longer proofs are missing a lot. And so they're just clunky, very clunky. The longer ones especially. Some of the shorter ones, it's hard to do that in a longer sentence. But yeah, I did encounter yet another proof this time during this reading that really caused me to go back and try to, it's called Alexander's theorem. I've been doing a lot of ChatGPT for this book, which may be a good thing, maybe a bad thing, because of course ChatGPT also introduces its own errors or things that are not explained the way they should be sometimes. Sometimes some things are wrong. But ChatGPT has helped me a lot for this particular book, incredibly enough, or so I think. So yeah, Alexander's theorem, I also encountered it. I sort of see what he's trying to prove. He's trying to be able to find something that is a finite subcover, and once he has that finite subcover, he's been able to get to his contradiction. And but yeah, and I'll show you in the notes. And so I received this book. I bought this book, and I don't know. I thought of coining the phrase, "A topology book lives or dies by its diagrams." But then again, Conway's book doesn't have a single diagram, and I don't want to say something bad about the book. I think the book is really good, and one of the things that Conway does that some of these other books do not do, including Moncri's, is provide very detailed analysis-like proofs. And so while I'm enjoying reading this book, for example, this book, I'll just say what it is. This is, yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that, Klaus Janik's topology book. It's translated from German by Sylvia Levy, and it is very well written. You know, he writes really well, and of course, let's give credit to the translator. But this book I'm going to be using for like, okay, why are we even doing this, and what's the point, and can you give me like a nice diagram? Because I think in topology, I mean, you know, it's geometry by other means, or maybe that's an ignorant way of saying it. But one thing that I really like about this book is, yeah, so the way it explains things, it's really, these diagrams are just precious. I'll go to the table of contents as well before I go on. But it explains homotopy, and I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Let me see where it is. So, let me see which is the chapter. It has a really nice diagram for homotopy, and I'm assuming that I'm saying that wrong, but either way, I'll just look it up in the table of contents. I'm sorry, sometimes in these videos I go into a paging frenzy. So it's page 59, and so look at this, you know, homotopy, and then he explains it really well with an example of how it's almost like a transformation from a state 0 and a state 1, where you start with one function and you end up with another. So you start with hx at time 0, and you have f of x, and then you end which h of x at time 1, and you end up with g of x, which is a different function. So yeah, this book is precious, and I'm going to be using it a lot. And hopefully the 2 books that I got from Dover also will help me. I want to see where Conway is getting his proofs. I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy on some of the things he actually did himself. But if he got him somewhere else, I want to read what that other author said, because it looks like something may have been lost in translation. It sure feels that way. So this book is more like a full topology book. So it's got homotopy, which means that it's got algebraic topology. And so I'll just page through the table of contents, and you can pause it if you want to look. But yeah, I think this book is going to be very helpful. Back to where I was. So I'm halfway through chapter 2. And the pace sure seems to be half a chapter per week. So at this pace, sometime in mid-January of 2024, I should be finished with the reading. I have not done any problems, and I know that that is actually bad for this book. This actually is one of those books where it would help me a lot if I was doing problems, because I would fill in all the missing text, which is apparently the way Conway wants to do it. Fine. But I'm going to come back and reread the book anyways. Even though I will not be making videos marking where I was. So here we go for the reading. And this notebook is almost done. Close to 600 pages. You know, each notebook these days that I'm doing for this Baby Rudin project is about 300 pages. So this one's almost over. When I finish this chapter, I think this is going to be done. I'll have a new notebook. And so more diagrams for the theorems that I'm reading. And so in chapter 1, he talks about metric spaces. So it's really usually like a x with a metric, xd. Then now this is more like a zooming out to topological spaces. And so a lot of theorems will map back to chapter 1. And sometimes you will not write out a proof because the proof is very analogous and sometimes even identical. Because it turns out that some of the theorems that he proved in chapter 1 were not metric specific, and so when you get down to go up to a higher level of topological space where there's no metric, then it's the same theorem. So continuity, and I'll point out, yeah, this is where I went and I looked up homeomorphism and isomorphism, compared between what is in algebra, abstract algebra, and what is in topology. And then I was able to go to Munkris and figure out, this is something where Conway is missing a lot of content that he just either assumes that you know it or just doesn't mention it. But these mapping functions, these pi, there's a really good diagram in Munkris, so I was able to go back. So actually, this book is always, I'm always going back to Munkris, and now I'm going to be going to Janik, and then I'm probably going to be going to the 2 books that are on their way to me. To be able to understand what is being discussed and to learn more. So lots of ChatGPT and lots of other books to read Conway. And then so this is Alexander's theorem. And after I read it, I couldn't really draw diagrams as I was reading it because I realized that it's I can see where he's going, you know, by trying to find the set that is the subcover, but how he got there, and I was trying to find out where this X really is. And so after I finished the theorem, I sat down and spent probably like a whole hour just trying to draw diagrams, and I believe all of these diagrams are wrong. I'm going to have to reread this one, read the other theorem in chapter 1. I'm going to have to do a bunch of problems, which is great. I love doing problems, and hopefully I will make progress then. But yeah, some other proofs were pretty straightforward, but at least 2 of them so far have been problematic. But I love what I'm learning, and I love the fact that I'm doing more topology than there is actually in Baby Rudin, and hopefully I'll learn a lot.